How's it going, everybody? Chris from Driven Unlimited here, and I hope you've been enjoying our live workouts. And as we move forward and progress, we wanted to progress our workouts as well. And how we're going to do that is by slowly adding in some equipment. So what I want to go through now are some of the equipment that we're going to be using. And below, we're going to have all of the links so that you can click on those and it'll bring you to these websites if you choose to purchase those. One of the first things that we're going to be using equipment-wise are going to be gliders and sliders. So gliders and sliders may be somewhat familiar. They look something like this, and they come in different colors, different shapes, different sizes even, and different brands. So you can find some of these. Again, we have links below, but we're looking for something that will help slide and glide across the surfaces. Now, the gliders work well for multi-surfaces, but if you're not able to purchase one of these right now, there's some things around the house, hopefully, that you can use as well. So instead of this, if I had a hardwood floor, something that I might look to use would be a towel. A towel works really well on hardwood floors because it still provides that gliding and sliding resistance that we would want if I was going to put my leg on this and do a lunge, use it on my hand as I do push-ups, and anything of that nature. Now, if I have mostly carpet, something I might recommend using would be maybe something like a paper plate. So it's very simple, very easy, and hopefully easy to find around the house that can help substitute the same benefits and use that we'll be using the gliders for. Now, we're also going to be using some bands because they give a lot of multifunctional use and they're relatively cheap. Some of the things that we'll be using will be mini bands. So these are probably familiar to most of you. These are the ones that we use to put around your knees, your ankles, and even wrists sometimes to do certain exercises. Now, again, we'll have the links below, but what I would recommend is probably the green band. It gets a lot of multifunctional use, but for someone that might want something slightly heavier in resistance, I may recommend the blue band. So these differentiate in tension through color. So green is going to be probably the most commonly used, about a medium resistance. Blue starts to get a little tighter, so if you wanted to increase intensity, this may be a better choice. Some other bands that we're going to be using are going to be the black power bands. So you can find these in the links below as well. They're usually slightly longer, and we can use these for attachments. We can stand to add resistance. This right here is about a 1/2 inch, and that's a pretty solid resistance that we would recommend using. Sometimes they have other bands that are a little heavier, but the 1/2 inch gives a lot of good benefit and use, where some of the other bands may be a little tighter. So again, just a 1/2 inch gets a lot of benefit. If I were to recommend something slightly heavier, I may recommend going up to the full inch here. So a full inch is plenty of resistance, especially once we start to anchor these and use these in different exercises. If you're using an 1.5 inches, that might be a little too much. So for those looking for heavier resistance, a 1 inch power band is probably good, whereas the 1/2 inch is probably going to be good for most. Another type of band we're going to be using are going to be our safety toners. And these are similar to the mini bands in which they are kind of differentiate via color. So the lightest band that we would recommend using would be the one with the yellow handles. So again, these have handles that will pivot around the attachments here. And then it's just a blue band, which is common. So the handle color is what helps differentiate. Yellow is very versatile, and this is probably what I recommend for most people to use. If someone, again, wanted to increase resistance, I would change the color, I recommend, maybe to a red. A red band is going to be pretty tight, but not super tight, so it's going to increase the resistance without being too difficult. The heaviest that I would advise using, especially when we use our attachment points, would be the blue handle. So if you see closely, the handles themselves are also blue, and this would be probably the heaviest resistance that I would recommend using. So these are going to be most of the bands that we're going to use, and they're going to be very useful when we use this TRX attachment. So this TRX attachment that we're going to use is a door anchor. So I can put this solid end up into the top of my doorway, and I can slide a band through on this side, and it acts as a pivot point in a fulcrum. Now I can add resistance with an anchor point either on top of the door or even sideways. And again, there's a little slot here, which is very convenient. If I wanted to take one of my safety toners, I could file that right through into about the middle of the band. So now I can attach that band somewhere and I have resistance based on an anchor point. So the TRX anchor is very useful, especially for moving forward, because it creates that anchor point, and I can change the height based on the doorway. So I can put that in the top, or I can make it more level on the side. Other things that are hopefully useful at home are going to be things that we're going to use for load. So being at home, we may not have the dumbbells, kettlebells, and other forms of weight that we would normally use, but something that's easy and convenient might just be a gallon of detergent here. So a gallon of detergent or even a gallon of water are great alternatives to adding some load. The things that are great about these are the handles, which are very useful for different rows, flying motions, but I can also just use it as weight itself. So if I don't have a kettlebell and I'm used to doing goblet squats, I can hold that load, although it may not be as heavy, and I can do my reps and sets here. And if I really wanted to increase load, hopefully something that's common around the house would be a backpack. This is great because I can add books in here and increase my load quickly. So if I wanted to do something like deadlifts or something heavier like squats, I could load this backpack up with books. And if I'm doing something that's lighter, I could just reach in, take out some books, lighten the load, and all of a sudden I have the same tool, but now with a lighter weight. So hopefully this was useful, and these are going to be some of the things that we're going to be using in our upcoming workouts. Again, we're going to have links below, and if you need any questions, please reach out to us at Driven Unlimited, and we hope to see you in these upcoming workouts.